Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to decode something truly fascinating. We usually think of human attraction as this really simple, straightforward force, right? Like if you like someone, you move toward them. It's exactly what we see in the movies. But human attraction is rarely a straight line. If we actually look closely, it's a deeply layered and frankly often contradictory psychological landscape. So today, we're going to explore this almost cinematic mystery about how we behave when we're drawn to someone. We're looking at the silent architectures of hidden attraction, and I promise you, by the end of this explainer, you're going to look at human interactions in a completely different way. So this brings us to the central psychological mystery we're unraveling today. Why on earth would someone actively avoid the very person they're most drawn to? I mean, on the surface, it makes absolutely no logical sense. But psychology tells us a much more complex story here. Sometimes the pull of attraction is just so incredibly intense that it literally short-circuits our logic and triggers our ultimate, most primal survival mechanism, which is fear. For a lot of people, the fear of rejection is just way more paralyzing than the desire for connection. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive disconnect between what we expect and what actually happens. We're all taught that expected attraction means, moving closer, initiating contact, giving crystal clear signals. But the reality for so many people is fear-driven avoidance. That intense desire to connect, it gets completely overshadowed by a paralyzing fear of rejection. So today, we're going to decode the 5 subtle, highly counterintuitive signs that someone is hiding their true feelings behind a veil of fear. Okay, let's dive into this. Sign number 1, the tactical retreat, or creating distance to survive. Have you ever noticed someone wildly oscillate between incredible warmth and just ice-cold distance? Like one day, they're super engaged in conversation with you, and the next day, they can barely make eye contact. It's wildly confusing, but it's actually a preemptive defense mechanism. They're creating distance before they can be hurt. The absolutely crucial thing to understand here is that this sudden coldness isn't a loss of interest. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a preemptive strike. When a person fears rejection, they push you away, whether they realize it or not, just to protect themselves. They distance themselves so that if the dreaded rejection finally comes, it hurts a little less because, well, in their mind, they were already away. They are literally sacrificing the potential for a connection just to guarantee their own emotional survival. Moving right along to sign number 2, the confidence paradox and the shift in composure. Think about how this person interacts with the rest of the world for a second. With others, they might be super witty, charismatic, holding court, and just entirely at ease. They're totally in their element. But the second you enter the room, the entire dynamic shifts. Suddenly they become quiet, highly self-conscious, or even remarkably awkward. It's a completely counterintuitive truth. We actually struggle the most to maintain our composure around the people whose opinions we value the absolute highest. The person they're struggling to impress is more often than not the person they secretly admire the most. Their confidence just completely evaporates because, for them, the stakes have suddenly skyrocketed. Next up is sign number 3, the overanalysis trap and the internal monologue. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how the high stakes turn everything upside down. To the insecure lover, every single brief interaction stops being a simple conversation and turns into a high-stakes performance that literally follows them home. Step 1 is the interaction itself, which honestly might have been perfectly fine, but then the trap snaps shut. They walk away and immediately think, did I say the wrong thing? Then step 3 kicks in. Did I sound forced or fake? And finally, the big one, did I accidentally reveal too much about how I feel? They don't just move on, they replay the interaction on an endless loop. This hyperanalysis is a glaring symptom of how deeply they care about the outcome. They're so laser-focused on not ruining things that they completely lose the ability to just be present and natural with you. Which brings us to sign number 4, the safety of the collective, or hiding in plain sight. Because those one-on-one interactions cause that incredibly painful overanalysis we just talked about, they choose to hide in plain sight instead. You'll notice they rarely, if ever, try to isolate you for a one-on-one confession of their feelings, or even just a casual solo hangout. The group setting becomes a safe harbor for them. By orbiting you within a larger group, they kind of get to have their cake and eat it too, emotionally speaking. They get to be near you, enjoy your energy, laugh at your jokes, and participate in your life. But, and this is the key, they get to do all of this completely insulated from the existential risk of a solitary direct conversation where they might be exposed or rejected. The crowd acts as this perfect physical and emotional buffer, keeping them close enough to feel connected, but far enough away to feel perfectly safe. Let's move to our final clue and see how this all builds together. Sign number 5, the passive signal and waiting in limbo. Honestly, this is often the most frustrating one to experience on the receiving end. Because they're trapped in that lack of confidence and overanalysis, their strategy essentially boils down to waiting entirely for you to take the lead. What they do is leave you a trail of breadcrumbs. We're talking small, almost deniable hints. Maybe it's a lingering glance across the room that lasts just a second too long, or occasional sporadic availability where they drop everything to help you out with something. They provide these passive clues because it gives you just enough to maintain that fragile connection. They desperately want to keep you interested, but they absolutely refuse to cross the threshold themselves. And the reason they won't cross that threshold? It's a calculated, albeit completely fearful, choice. They're literally weighing the safe limbo of secret attraction against the absolute finality of a no. To them, making a move means risking the total loss of the connection they currently enjoy. They're terrified, so they decide they would much rather live in the safe, static limbo of a secret attraction forever rather than risk facing the absolute finality of you saying no. So, wrapping this up, the mask of fear, what we leave behind. All of these signs weave together to form an incredibly effective disguise. We've seen exactly how efficiently fear creates distance, forces us into a confidence paradox, traps us in overanalysis, and keeps us firmly anchored in the safety of groups and passive breadcrumbs. But the true heartbreak of it all is this. Sometimes the person who appears the least interested is the one most terrified of losing a chance they never had the courage to take. It's a really sobering reality of human psychology. Think about it. The very mechanism designed to protect us from the pain of rejection is often the exact same mechanism that guarantees we remain alone, keeping us from the connection we actually desperately want. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Do you believe the fear of rejection destroys more potential relationships than the actual lack of compatibility? It's a pretty powerful thing to ponder. I mean, how many great loves, friendships, or partnerships never even started, simply because both people were waiting in the safety of their own secret limbo? I invite you to think deeply about the true cost of hidden attraction today. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating topic with me, and I'll see you in the next one.